Okay, all right. Let's call this meeting to order. This is a special board meeting of the Board of Education. It is July 29th, 2021. Let's have our call to order and we'll jump right into the approval of the agenda order. We're doing a virtual meeting today. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the agenda order.
I'll second. Great.
Okay, the votes. Ms. Latimerk.
Aye.
Mr. Dauber.
Aye.
And Mr. Drop.
Aye. All right, our agenda is approved. We're going to move on to the first item on action, two-meeting approval rule waiver.
I move that we waive the two-meeting rule for all of the items on the agenda today.
I second.
Okay, Ms. Latimerk.
Aye.
Mr. Dauber.
Aye.
Mr. Drop.
Aye. All right, item 2B, Assembly Bill 104, pupil instruction.
Okay, I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Ofek. We have a very brief run through. This one has some tight timelines. Just want to make sure everyone has the expectations straight in their head. And Ms. Ofek, you've got it.
Thank you, Dr. Austin. I'm going to work on sharing my screen right now. And if someone could just give me a thumbs up when they can see it. Is that good? Excellent. Thank you. So Assembly Bill 104, I'm going to cruise right through the three different parts of it. This bill was signed on July 1st and shared with us, got to get my cursor over, shared with us for implementation. There are three components to it. Number one is retention, which applies to students in TK through grade 11 in last year's school year. So currently kindergarten through 12th grade. There are a bunch of criteria and conditions that must be met. So those are delineated here, but a little bit more easily for those of us who like a visual is a flow chart here. It says draft next to it. However, we were able to confirm that this is accurate. So there is an eligibility requirement. If a student meets that eligibility, we are required to conduct a consultation meeting within 30 days and make a decision based on that consultation meeting, which has certain components to it. And then within 10 days of the consultation meeting, we will notify families whether or not the retention has been granted. Regardless of the outcome, students will, the conversation of those meetings and the outcome of those meetings will result in students receiving interventions related to the concerns that are raised at that time. So that's element number one. Element number two is a grade change request. This is for high school students. The legislation uses the language pass or no pass or any like a district specific equivalent. So for us, it would be credit, no credit. Applications are required. And then we're also required to share information about the impact on potential college situations and what institutions are accepting, to quote the legislation, without prejudice. And we have a bunch of resources from the CDE related to that. There is a strict and tight timeline on that. We'll be posting this to our website tomorrow, and applications will start being received. And then we have until August 15th to receive applications. We are not allowed to accept late applications. So again, tight timeline on that one and pretty rigid. And then within 15 days of that, of receiving the request to make a change, we have to process that and notify the student in writing that that has been changed, that the grade has been changed. So there's a lot of conversation that has to go along with point number two. And a bunch of information is included in the actual board item. If people want to learn more, it's all written there, and it will also be posted on our website. This is just a quick timeline from when it was enacted to when information was pushed out to when we'll be done with this entire process. And then the final item or element of this legislation is a graduation requirement exemption only for students who were juniors and seniors in last year's school year. So current seniors and students who already graduated who are not on track to complete the graduation requirements. We are required now, the local graduation requirements, we are required now to provide them with the opportunity to complete the California minimum state requirements, which in our district, the difference is we have 220 units as a requirement, and the state minimum is 130 units, and it's distributed across specific courses, and there's more detail related to it for sure. But we will be reaching out to students who qualify for that rather than people trying to submit an application. There's no application required. We will reach out based on the information in our student information system and push information out to students who do qualify for those options that are available, which are this state minimum and then also some forms of credit recovery. And that, in a nutshell, a very speedy presentation is the information, and all of it will be posted onto our website tomorrow for action by our community as well. There'll be links to forms that they need to complete, and all the details will be there. And that's it for me.
Great.
Oh, I guess I should say one more thing. Sorry, I'll stop the share. But the one final thing is that the action that the board is being requested to take is, or recommended to take, is approval, suspension of existing policy and adoption of temporary policy that has these elements in it with the information from the legislation. And obviously those are temporary and no longer applicable after a certain period of time. So it's a temporary adoption of something that's short-term.
Okay. Comments or questions, colleagues?
I have one
Jesse.
very quick question that's just a clarification, I think. So, Ms. Ofek, I think what I'm understanding is that the retention piece, there's an eligibility piece. So we're sort of evaluating whether the students are eligible to be retained. And then, but for the credit, no credit, and the graduation requirements exemption, basically everyone's eligible. If they submit the application, we approve it. Is that right?
So for the grade change, that's open to high school students. So I just want to make sure that's clear. It's not everyone in our district, it's high school students. And the graduation requirements are again, it's not on track to graduate, which means something specific. It's not anyone. And that's, we are fortunate in our district that we do not have a large number of those students, and we will do the outreach to them and share what is available to them if they want to choose it.
And then my second question is just about communication to families. I know all of this was mentioned in the superintendent's update. And then you mentioned that it's going to be posted on the website tomorrow. Is there going to be another communication out to families like, hey, applications now, or?
I'll take that one. Yes, it's all written. It's in translation right now, right this minute. And our dedicated website will be pausd.org/AB104. And that's where parents will go for both retention information and for grade change information. That goes out tomorrow as soon as it's translated.
Thanks.
And principals from the high schools will include it in their communications as they start to open school and communicate with the community.
Yeah, of note, there are very tight timelines on this, not only for us to get this approved, but there's a tight timeline on the back end for families to take advantage of it. And that timeline starts when we open the window. So this is ripe for some disappointment, but it is what it is. So this will all go out tomorrow.
Okay. I have a quick question. Is there a functional difference between what we're being asked to do, which is suspend the existing policy and then pass a new temporary policy, which looks like the old policy with just an addition in it, versus just amending the policy?
Let me talk through the rationale of that real quick. So drop, because we really kick it around. In our district, when we're going to revise a policy that's going to be around for a while, it goes to BPRC. It goes through 2 meetings. I mean, there's a process. That's at least 3 times. And we felt uncomfortable bringing something that could look like it's going to stick and be a permanent revision through this accelerated process. So our thought was to, in this case, call out suspending the old, pop this one in, it will sunshine, and then we can look and see if there's anything that we'd like to keep longer term. Then it should go through our regular process. So we just thought this one was dangerous to start trying to do a recreate that in a year we're going to have to undo. So that was our rationale and why we did it this way.
Okay. Good deal. All right. Ready to take a vote?
I move that we suspend and adopt the board policies as set forth in this item.
I second.
Great.
So drop, I cannot see if people have hands raised, but do we want to make sure we don't have public comment?
Oh, that's a great point. We don't have any public comment.
Okay, then we're ready for the vote. Ms. Latimerich?
Aye.
Mr. Dauber?
Aye.
Mr. Drop?
Aye. Okay, passes. Moving on to 2C, Assembly Bill 130, independent study.
Yep. So we have a few things between AB 130 and then the contract on D for how we'll administer. They kind of link. But on item C, you're really approving the CSBA language that takes care of a couple things. One thing I was reminded today by a neighboring superintendent is the temporary legislation that allowed for virtual schools has expired. So the expectation from the legislators is that virtual schools are out. Independent study with a lesser expectation is in. So that's a really important part of what we're doing here. We're not expected to create a new virtual school. We're expected to provide a independent study program that happens to be distance learning with some parameters around it. But as you'll see, the attendance parameters and how we have to report is pretty robust. The expectations for synchronous time and expectations is really pretty loosely defined. So all you are doing tonight is approving the board policy, which is a requirement from the state of California that we do this. And it's been stated that it has to be done before the first day of school. They don't care about 2 meeting rules or boards having to call special board meetings. We're not excited about that part of it, but I can tell you our ability to comply with AB 130 is probably as good or better than any of the surrounding districts that I've been speaking with each day. So there's a lot of detail there. Ms. Conaway can add if you have very specific questions. I can answer the general questions. Otherwise, we did not add anything that was not required. Okay, so this is CSBA, and we reviewed some recommendations from the county, and maybe a couple are in there, but most of those we thought were actually pretty poorly written and messy. So we're free to take questions if you have them on this CSBA proposed language.
Okay. Colleagues, questions or comments?
I just have a
Okay.
general question about how it's going to work. And maybe you're going to go into that when we get to the contract. But there's a lot in this policy I noticed about district identifying a certificated staff person who's going to oversee all these students. And my sense is, well, we're contracting this out. So how does that relationship work? If you could.
Yeah. Mr. Drop, if you're okay, I mean, these items C and D are so intertwined that if you're okay with having a little liberty to touch on the mechanics of it. Okay. So in a moment, you'll look at our proposal for our contract with Stride Learning Solutions. One of the reasons that we're looking at Stride is because they're all California certified teachers. They will be the teacher of record. We really had to work through a lot of stuff, like the legislation has so many timelines and mechanics issues that clearly whoever wrote it wasn't thinking about what it would be like to implement it. In our case, as we've stated a few times, with about 95% of our families likely to select in person, we want our teachers to teach and quit doing things that we're not built to do. You know, I really believe strongly if a person is asked to do 3 or 4 very different things, they can't possibly be great at all of them. And we have teachers that have never been in a classroom in front of kids. If it's the first or second year, they've never been in front of a kid. We want them in the classroom, dedicating their time with our students in person. K-12 Stride is built to do the things we're not built to do. They are built to do the distance program, and to account for the synchronous instruction, they will have to report back to us to make sure that they're in compliance of AB 130. If they are not, then we remove all of our students from their program. Okay, so that's where we're at on that. Does that get to enough of your question, or would you like to go deeper?
Well, I guess, I don't know, you tell me. I mean, there's a lot in this policy. There's said board needs to decide how many assignments kids can miss, how long they have between assignments, right? And so my question is, really? I mean, we have to do that? Isn't Stride doing that? Are you doing that? Somebody, that's
If I may jump in,
Sure.
Don,
Sure.
sometimes the language is a little confusing. The existing policy prior to the changes of independent study required us to approve what types of assignments and the extent of those assignments. What the code says now is that we have to make sure that we're measuring educational progress. And if not, then we have to kick to an evaluation meeting where we do determine whether there's a specific set criteria for students to meet, to identify and define educational progress. So it's a little bit different, and the board is not required to do that.
So, America, just to tag on, there's so much coming at us and our families so quickly, and it's confusing. In our letter that goes out tomorrow, we're going to tell everyone you're not even allowed to select independent study till after our webinar, which is next Tuesday. The folks from Stride are going to be running that webinar. It will be an opportunity to submit questions as you go. We have some promotional materials that we're going to push out as well. But if you're going to select independent study, you have to see the webinar either live, or we'll push it out the next day recorded. And hopefully that'll make more sense about what the program looks and feels like. But again, you know, in person is our default. And in fact, you don't even have to turn in an answer to the next survey. Only if you're selecting independent study, you have to submit something. Otherwise, your default is we'll see you on August 11th and 12th.
Okay.
So drop, I believe,
Great.
do we have no, we do not have a motion yet on this one.
No, I'll take a motion. Or I'll make a motion. I'll move that we approve, what's the exact language here? I'll move that we approve the board policy.
Second?
Great.
Second. All right, Ms. Ludemerick,
Aye.
Mr. Dauber,
Aye.
Mr. Drop.
Aye.
All right.
Okay. And item 2D is the contract with Stride.
Yeah, before we get started, look, when I say we've been scrambling, I want to be a little more precise about that. Ms. Conaway's been scrambling. And really, I asked her to take the lead on AB 130, just as I asked Ms. Ofek to take the lead on AB 104, and they've both done outstanding, very short work of this. All the districts that I've talked to are doing one of a couple things, one of probably 3 things. They are contracting out, which I believe will be the most common approach in our area, just speaking with other superintendents. Some have done partnership agreements with a district that was willing to take on their students. They were built out to be able to provide something to their neighboring districts. And some are doing their own in-house. So those are really the three options that you have. I will tell you this, that when AB 130 came about, we got together, we started brainstorming, and instantly we found ourselves feeling like it was March 2020 again, that we were going to ask people to do things that they weren't hired to do, those unnatural directions that just didn't make any sense for us. And we also did not want to distract from the very lofty goals we have for this year. The week before AB 130 was put upon us, we were back talking about revisions to the PAUSD promise and early literacy in our five main goals. And this came, and instantly we were all distracted. We are not going to have another year of distractions. So, well, in fact, we certainly are, but this isn't one that we have to have on top of the others. So Ms. Conway did a very nice job going through, looking at our options. We identified 2 or 3 that were players in this space. K-12 Stride has an excellent reputation. We were able to contact a couple of people that actually used them already. They've been able to work with us nicely. They understand the very high expectations of our district. But I want everyone to understand, if you moved here for PAUSD schools, then no supplement, nothing other than PAUSD teachers and schools is going to be PAUSD level. So while this will certainly meet the requirements, and we think at the best level that we could find for outsourcing, the best instructional program is PAUSD, period. But that being said, this solution should be able to serve those who are not in the 95% plus that are going to return to us in person for a variety of reasons. We think it can work. So I'll stop there. There is definitely questions about the amount of money. We are guessing. So we're guessing on our polling where that final number will come in. Families in the legislation can move back and forth with a 5-day maximum of our moving them upon a request. So it could fluctuate. One thing that Stride did do for us, very nice, is we will have monthly billing instead of an upfront licensing agreement. That's good for us. So we're not paying for unused licenses, which is very common. So I'll stop and see if we have any questions.
Great. Colleagues, questions? Ms. Latimirak?
I have a question about how this connects with home hospital, because we had been telling families kind of the option was home hospital. Is that still an option, or is this where all those kids are going now?
I'll give you the short version and make sure if there's additional questions, Ms. Conway can jump in. Home hospital is still an option for students who qualify for home hospital, which are those who are truly medical fragile. They're in the hospital, they've come out of something big. That's a different program. This is not the same program. This is different.
And just to add to that, thank you, Dr. Austin. The language in the legislation is about students who have health risks as determined by the parent. So this is not something where we're considering whether there's a true medical condition or concern. It's just if the parent feels unsure or unsafe, this is an option for those parents, unlike home hospital, which is strictly for medical reasons.
Yeah, that was exactly my question, because I knew the legislation was written so the medical determination was from the parent's perspective. So I was just wondering how we were going to distinguish between those.
Latimirak, was that answer okay for you?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, other questions? All right, a motion?
I move that we approve the contract with Stride Learning Solutions.
I second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Dauber, seconded by Ms. Latimirak.
All right, Ms. Latimirak.
Aye.
Mr. Dauber.
Aye.
Mr. Drop.
Aye. Okay, the motion passes. And that's it. That was our meeting. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the work, staff and Dr. Austin for setting it up. Colleagues, we'll see you at the next regular meeting.
Thank you. I'm going to go for a little walk around Stanford campus and just relax.
Nice. We got you out before the hour.
Yes, you did. Good night, everybody.
Good night.